So, welcome to our accounts receivable practice questions. So, ganito ang magiging mechanics ng ating practice questions na ito. I-flash ko po ang questions sa screen mo, gaya nito. Tapos, i-pause mo yung screen. Pag na-solve mo na ang problem, then play it again for the next questions. Sa solutions naman, ganito ang gagawin natin. So yan ang beginning balance natin ng the allowance for doubtful accounts. Tapos, ang sabi ng problem natin is, during the year, the accounts receivable of 35,000 were written off. So, ano ang effect ng write-off? So, isusulat ko lahat ng mga concepts na kakailanganin natin para ma-analyze natin yung question for each questions. Then, isusulat natin dito yung mga solutions. Halika, samahan mo akong mag-analyze ng accounts receivable practice questions. Alright, question number 9 tayo. So, what is the requirement on question number 9? Alright, in its December 31st, year 2 balance sheets, what amount should Sunset report as accounts receivable net of allowance for uncollectible accounts? So, ang hinahanap ng problem ay yung net realizable value ng accounts receivable or yung accounts receivable amount net of the allowance for uncollectible accounts. So, ang una natin gagawin ay titignan natin kung magkano ang accounts receivable ending at saka yung allowance for uncollectible accounts ending. And then, ima-minus natin yung dalawang amount na yon. Yun ang hinahanap ng problem natin. So, in its December 31st, year 1 balance sheet, Sunset Company reported accounts receivable of 850,000, net of allowance for uncollectible accounts of 50,000. Remember, ang hinahanap ng problem natin ay year 2. So, itong 850,000 net of the allowance for uncollectible accounts of 50,000, ito yung net realizable value last year. Para makita natin ang accounts receivable beginning ng January 1 of year 2, i-add back natin yung 50,000 sa 850,000. Alright? Para makita natin yung ating accounts receivable beginning. So, ang ibig sabihin, ang ating accounts receivable beginning ay 900,000. Then, tingnan natin kung anong nangyari sa buong taon ng year 2. Credit sales during the year were 1,200,000. So, sa credit sales, that's an addition to our accounts receivable beginning. Kasi ang entry natin sa credit sales is debit to accounts receivable and credit to sales. So, when you debit an accounts receivable, nag-a-add ka po sa accounts receivable mo. Alright? So, we add our credit sales. Then, and collections from customer, excluding recoveries, totaled 1,050,000. So, sa collections, anong effect niya sa ating accounts receivable? Sa collections po is debit to a cash, sa nakolekta natin na 1,050,000, and we credit the accounts receivable, which is a minus to our accounts receivable. Alright? So, ima-minus natin yung collection na 1,050,000. In the year, accounts receivable of 35,000 were written off and 18,000 were recovered. So, anong effect ng ating write-off sa ating accounts receivable beginning? So, ang effect ng ating write-off or ang entry natin sa write-off is debit to the allowance for uncollectible accounts and credit to accounts receivable. So, kapag nag-credit ka ng accounts receivable, mina-minus natin yan sa ating accounts receivable. So, ang write-off, ang effect niya sa ating accounts receivable is minus. So, we minus our write-off of 35,000. and 18,000 were recovered. Remember, kapag meron tayong recovery, ang una nating gagawin ay isi-set up muna natin yung accounts receivable sa nasingil natin, sa na-recover nating amount. Okay? We debit our accounts receivable and we credit our allowance for doubtful accounts. Tsaka natin i-record yung kinolekta natin. So, we will debit to cash and we credit the accounts receivable. Alright? So, ang ibig sabihin, wala yung effect dito sa ating accounts receivable. Dahil nag-debit ka ng accounts receivable, nag-credit ka din na accounts receivable sa nakolekta mo. Sunset estimated that 45,000 of the accounts receivable at December 31st were uncollectible. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? Binigay na ng problem kung magkano ang ending balance ng ating allowance for uncollectible accounts. So, there are three methods. We have our aging of the accounts receivable, the percentage of the accounts receivable, at ng percentage of credit sales. So, problem natin, binigay na yung amount mismong allowance for uncollectible accounts ending. Yung amount na makukuha natin sa aging of accounts receivable or ng percentage of accounts receivable, itong amount na yan na po yung ending balance natin. To get our uncollectible account expense or ang ating bad debts expense, ipa-plug in mo lang dito yon. Pero kapag ang ginagamit ng company ay ang percentage of credit sales, alright? Kung ito ang ginagamit niya, itong amount mismo na ito, yan na po yung uncollectible account expense mo. So, meron ka ng amount dito, i-add mo lang yan, makukuha mo na ang iyong ending balance of your allowance for uncollectible account. Ang sabi ng problem is, Sunset estimated that 45,000 of the accounts receivable at December 31st were uncollectible. So, binigay na yung mismong amount ng uncollectible. So, ito na po ang ating ending balance ng ating allowance for uncollectible accounts. Yan na rin po ang ima-minus natin dito to get our accounts receivable net of allowance for uncollectible accounts. Alright? So, our answer is 970,000. And our answer is letter B. Alright, question number 10 tayo. The amount collected from customers on accounts receivable during the year 4 was. So, ang tinatanong na naman dito sa problem na ito ay collection. So, collection problems ulit tayo. Alright? Alam mo kung sinong expert sa collection problems? Mga Bombay. Joke lang po. Alright, let's start. So, the company had an accounts receivable of 1,650,000 on December 31st, year 3. So, ang tinatanong ng problem natin, year 4. Okay? Yung collections ng year 4. Itong 1,650,000 ay ending balance last year ng December 31st, year 3. Alright? So, yan ang magiging beginning balance natin ng January 1st of year 4. Alright? So, dyan tayo mag-uumpisa. So, we have a accounts receivable beginning of 1,650,000. 1,750,000 on December of year 4. So, yan po ang ating ending balance ng ating accounts receivable. Alright? The company wrote off 400,000 of accounts receivable during year 4. So, anong effect ng ating write-off sa ating accounts receivable? Ano bang entry natin sa ating write-off? Debit to allowance for uncollectible accounts and credit to the accounts receivable. So, minus po ang ating accounts receivable beginning. Amounting to 400,000. Sales for the year 4 totaled 6 million and all sales were on account. So, lahat po ng 6 million ay credit sales natin. Alright? So, ano bang effect ng credit sales sa ating accounts receivable? That is additions to our accounts receivable. Alright? Kasi ang entry natin is debit to accounts receivable and credit to sales. So, our credit sales is 6 million. Ang hinahanap ng problem natin ay collections, okay? Ima-minus natin dito po yung collections natin. Ang effect ng collections sa ating accounts receivable ay minus, alright? At yan po ang hinahanap ng problem. So, ipa-plug in mo lang yung missing amount or our collection is 5,500,000. So, our answer is letter C.